Investment. When Coinbase went public back in 2021, it was the first true test of how Wall Street would react to a crypto native company stepping into the spotlight. At its peak, Coinbase reached nearly a 100 billion valuation on day one, making early investors and insiders massively wealthy. But shortly after reality hit, the stock dropped as crypto markets cooled, teaching us that while IPO hype can be explosive, sustainable gains depend on long-term fundamentals. Coinbase's IPO gave us one of the clearest case studies of how quickly wealth can be made and lost when it comes to crypto stocks. Now enter Gemini. Unlike Coinbase, Gemini has built its brand on regulation first principles, emphasizing security, compliance, and transparency. Founded by the Winklevoss twins, Gemini has positioned itself not just as another exchange, but as a trusted custodian for institutions and retail investors alike. In an environment where governments worldwide are cracking down on crypto, Gemini's regulatory focus could give it a significant edge. This isn't just about trading Bitcoin or Ethereum. It's about being the safe on-ramp for traditional finance entering crypto. That positioning could attract serious capital when the IPO launches. Here's the real question: which IPO has the potential to mint more millionaires? Coinbase's early investors and insiders already hit their jackpot. For new investors buying on IPO day, investment. Most missed out on the massive upside because they bought at inflated valuations. With Gemini, the opportunity could be different. If priced correctly and if crypto adoption continues to accelerate, Gemini's IPO could allow more everyday investors to capture meaningful upside before the next bull cycle fully matures. The risk, however, is clear. Just like Coinbase, if the IPO launches at sky-high valuations, the stock could slide before stabilizing, wiping out early enthusiasm. So which one is the millionaire-maker? Coinbase already made its insiders rich. Gemini, depending on its timing, market conditions, and valuation, might provide more opportunities for new investors to grow serious wealth. But the truth is, neither IPO is a guaranteed lottery ticket. The real winners are those who approach these IPOs with strategy, understanding valuations, waiting for corrections, and holding for the long term. If you're patient, disciplined, and willing to stomach volatility. Investment. Gemini may hold the crown as the next great wealth creator in the crypto to Wall Street story. When we look back at Coinbase's IPO, it was a defining moment for both Wall Street and the crypto industry. Coinbase became the first major cryptocurrency exchange to go public, and that immediately set a historical benchmark for all future crypto-related IPOs. On day one, Coinbase reached nearly a 100 billion valuation, which was unheard of for a company so young in such a volatile sector. Early investors, insiders, and employees saw their paper wealth explode overnight, and many became millionaires instantly. But for regular retail investors who bought into the IPO hype, the story played out very differently. The stock opened high, soared for a brief period, and then steadily declined as crypto markets corrected and enthusiasm cooled. This was a classic lesson. IPO hype can create enormous short-term wealth, but if you enter at inflated valuations, the downside risk can be brutal. Another key takeaway from the Coinbase IPO is how closely tied a crypto company's stock performance is to the broader crypto market. When Bitcoin and Ethereum surged, investment, Coinbase's revenues followed. But as soon as the market slowed, the company's growth and share price reflected that. The IPO highlighted the cyclical nature of crypto businesses, investment, reminding investors that timing is everything. So when we can compare Gemini's upcoming IPO to Coinbase's history, the lessons are clear. Investors must pay close attention to valuations, market sentiment, and SMIT, and the stage of the crypto cycle. Coinbase's IPO made insiders rich, but most everyday investors got caught in the hype and bought at the peak. Investment. That experience is the benchmark investors will use when analyzing Gemini's entry to Wall Street. The question is, investment. Will Gemini repeat the same cycle or learn from Coinbase's playbook and offer a more sustainable opportunity? Gemini has always taken a very different path compared to other crypto exchanges. Investment, and that distinction could play a major role in how its IPO performs. Founded by the Winklevoss twins, Gemini positioned itself early on as a regulation-first platform. While many exchanges focused on rapid growth and flashy marketing, Gemini leaned into compliance, security, and trust. That approach didn't always generate the same headlines as competitors like Coinbase or Binance. Investment, but in the long run, it may prove to be one of its strongest advantages. In an industry that has seen exchange collapses, hacks, and regulatory crackdowns, Gemini's conservative stance could attract a different type of investor: institutions, hedge funds, and everyday users who prioritize safety over speculation. This gives Gemini a unique selling point. investment, being the safe bridge between traditional finance and digital assets. Another area where Gemini stands out is its diversification of services. Beyond being an exchange, Gemini has expanded into custody solutions, institutional trading, and even digital asset payments through its Gemini Pay system. It's also been one of the few exchanges openly supportive of working with regulators rather than against them. That approach could pay off massively when Wall Street evaluates the company's long-term prospects. For many investors who were skeptical of Coinbase's volatile revenue streams, Gemini's positioning as a secure, regulated, and institution-friendly platform could make its IPO more attractive. Ultimately, Gemini's reputation is built on credibility in a space where trust is often questioned. Investment. If Coinbase's IPO represented the explosive, high-growth side of crypto, Gemini's IPO may represent stability, compliance, and long-term sustainability. That doesn't mean it will be risk-free investment, but it does suggest that Gemini could carve out a different lane on Wall Street, one that appeals to both cautious investors and institutions looking for a reliable gateway into crypto. And the idea of which IPO can actually create more millionaires comes down to three major factors: timing, valuation, and risk. With Coinbase, the timing looked perfect at first. The IPO launched during a heated crypto bull run, and investors rushed in with sky-high expectations. But because the stock debuted at such an inflated valuation, most of the upside had already been priced in, leaving little room for new investors to profit. Instead of minting more millionaires, it ended up trapping many in losses when the stock corrected. Investment. That's the danger of chasing hype. For Gemini, the key will be whether its IPO is priced more realistically and whether it aligns with a favorable point in the crypto cycle. If the IPO happens during a rising market, but not at its absolute peak, there's more potential for growth post-listing, which means more opportunity for everyday investors to benefit rather than just insiders. Valuation is the second critical element. If Gemini lists with a moderate valuation, it leaves room for appreciation as adoption and revenue grow. An overvalued launch, however, would repeat Coinbase's story: initial excitement followed by a steep decline. This is why patient investors often wait until after the IPO frenzy settles before buying in. The third factor is risk, and it's one investors cannot ignore. Crypto exchanges live and die by market volatility. If Bitcoin crashes, so will trading revenues, which directly impact stock prices. That's why investors need to prepare for swings and only invest what they can afford to hold long-term. When all three factors align: reasonable timing, fair valuation, and managed risk, the potential to create millionaires is much greater. Gemini has the chance to deliver that balance, but it will depend heavily on how the IPO is structured and the market climate when it launches. When we ask which IPO offers the better long-term wealth opportunity, the answer isn't just about which company can deliver explosive short-term gains. It's about which one has the foundation to grow steadily over time. Coinbase has already established itself as the pioneer, and it benefited from being first to market with a public listing. But with that came challenges: extreme volatility, overvaluation at launch, and heavy reliance on retail trading volume. Those factors made it difficult for Coinbase stock to deliver consistent long-term value to investors who joined at the IPO. The company has since been working on diversifying revenue streams, but the stock still moves in lockstep with crypto market cycles. That makes it harder for everyday investors to count on stability or predictable wealth building potential. Gemini, on the other hand, investment, may have an edge moving forward. Its focus on regulation and institutional trust could allow it to carve out a more sustainable business model, one that isn't purely dependent on speculative trading. If Gemini positions itself as the go-to platform for both everyday investors and major institutions seeking a compliant gateway into crypto, its revenues could become more stable and scalable over time. That, in turn, would give its stock a better chance of long-term appreciation. Investors who buy in early at reasonable valuations might see wealth accumulate gradually rather than experiencing the boom and bust cycle that defined Coinbase's debut. Ultimately, IPO that makes more millionaires in the long run won't necessarily be the one with the biggest day one pop. It will be the company that adapts, grows, and earns investor confidence year after year. Right now, investment. Gemini has the opportunity to learn from Coinbase's experience and build a trajectory that rewards patient, disciplined investors with